Today's video will continue our look at the entire career of The Undertaker. Last time we left off at the end of 1996, which was a busy enough year for the dead man. Paul Bearer was no longer by The Undertaker's side. The Mankind feud had kicked off, and The Undertaker had debuted a new look towards the end of the year. 1997 would prove to be another important year for The Undertaker, so let's dig in. Just a quick heads up, this video will jump back and forth a little to cover the whole year. Taker was put into a huge storyline after WrestleMania while still working matches with other superstars not involved in the angle, so I'll cover that big storyline once we get to it, and then look at the matches that happened at the same time afterwards. As normal, 1997 started with the usual build towards the Royal Rumble. Taker's first televised match of the year occurred on the January 13th episode of Raw. However, the match was taped on the 30th of December 1996. Undertaker took on Crush here. It was announced as Undertaker walked to the ring that he would be facing Vader at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view in a singles match, and also Undertaker would be entering the Royal Rumble match itself. Undertaker won via DQ here on Raw when the Nation of Domination and Vader hit the ring and attacked the dead man. This Royal Rumble match here in 1997 is one I feel I've talked about loads of times, but I honestly don't mind. It was one of the more entertaining WWF events at the time. The Vader vs Undertaker match here was decent. It was very watchable, but these two men would have a better match a few months down the line on pay-per-view, but a little more on that later. Vader got in a ton of offense here, but The Undertaker managed to turn the tides. And just as Taker was going for the chokeslam, he noticed Paul Bearer coming to the ring. After laying a few punches into his former manager, Bearer stayed at ringside and assisted Vader where he could. And after Paul hit Undertaker with the urn, Vader was able to pick up the victory. Vader and Paul Bearer left the ring together, so it seems that Vader had just found himself a new manager. In the Royal Rumble match, Stone Cold Steve Austin decided to slide back into the ring after getting eliminated. The referees didn't see Austin get thrown over the top rope, and Stone Cold went on to eliminate Vader, Undertaker, and Bret Hart to win the entire Rumble match. Bret Hart was very annoyed, and the next night on Raw, he decided to quit the WWF because of this injustice. To entice Bret Hart back, WWF President Gorilla Monsoon announced that a Final Four match would happen at the next In Your House pay-per-view to decide the real #1 contender for the WWF Championship. The Final Four match would feature the three men Steve Austin eliminated at the end of the Royal Rumble, Bret Hart, Vader, and The Undertaker, and the match would also feature Stone Cold Steve Austin himself. The rules of this elimination match were quite unique. A superstar could get eliminated by pinfall, submission, and also a superstar could get eliminated by being thrown over the top rope. There were also no disqualifications. Before getting to the Final Four match, The Undertaker wrestled...
I'm not going to lie, chat. That was probably one of the best endings of an episode of Raw from 97 at the time. Up to the Fatal 4-Way pay-per-view at In Your House, which all four of them completely stole the house.
They ended when all Final Four participants brawled in the ring. Shawn Michaels would forfeit his WWF Championship because he lost his smile, and so the winner of the Final Four would be named the WWF Champion. There's something about these In Your House shows from late 96 to mid 97 where you can tell the WWF were trying to cut corners and save money, from the entranceways to the broadcast feed quality. The presentation these days is enough to turn some fans off, but whatever you do, don't sleep on In Your House Final Four. The main event match pitting The Undertaker against Bret Hart, Vader, and Steve Austin is one of the best matches of the year, and that says a lot considering 1997 was packed with good stuff. The participants took advantage of the no disqualification rule. Vader got busted open in a bad way, and during the
all over his
entirety
eye,
of the
too.
match, it was
Rest
really
in peace,
hard to pick
Vader.
out a winner. All four men had a great night here.
Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
the noise of the audience is totally insane when we got down to the final two, Bret Hart and The Undertaker. Taker nails the choke slam on Bret Hart and goes for a tombstone, but the eliminated Steve Austin was hell-bent on still trying to attack Bret Hart. Austin got on the apron and The Undertaker punched Austin to get him out of the way, allowing Bret Hart to take advantage of the situation and clothesline Taker over the top rope to win the WWF Championship.
Yeah, it was long as shit
I
back
can't say
then.
it enough. If you haven't seen this match, get on it as soon as possible.
I would be lying if I said this, that Undertaker and Bret Hart completely stole the show with the last two in the ring, letting everybody know that in SummerSlam 97 was definitely one of their better matches and the most iconic matches. But I don't want to spoil nothing, so you already know what I'm about to say.
The WWF title the very next night on Raw to Psycho Sid, and it was also announced that The Undertaker would be the #1 contender for the championship at WrestleMania. The Sid vs. Undertaker match at WrestleMania 13 definitely wasn't one of my favourite Mania
it wasn't
Taker
mine either,
matches.
though.
I know there are people out there who like this match, and that's absolutely fine. There's stuff I like that I'm sure others don't.
I mean, I kind of agree, but the one thing I really, really love about this main event was Undertaker's intro, because he went back to his Western Mortician's gimmick that he debuted in the 1990s. So that was one of those iconic moments when he made that grand entrance, icing on the cake.
Taker, though, had his work cut out for him. Not only was he going up against Sid here, but the classic Bret Hart versus Steve Austin match also happened on this night. And
Which
that
should have been a
match
main
was
event.
insanely good. I also don't blame Taker for the match being a little underwhelming. He had worked with big guys in the past and gotten good to great matches out of them, from Yokozuna to Diesel, but the pace was kept incredibly slow during this Mania 13 match. It can be a bit of a chore to sit through. One thing I will say that was pretty cool, though, The Undertaker came out wearing his old black and grey ring attire, the same gear he wore during his debut years in the WWF. Anyway, Taker was able to capture the WWF Championship here for the second time in his career after nailing the tombstone. Bret Hart would get involved in the match a few times, and yeah, not much else to say. The visual of Undertaker holding the belt to end WrestleMania 13, though, was good to see. The fans loved it.
That thumbnail became so iconic.
Iconic photo.
Yeah, personally, I don't really think he should have won that title because he was already so over and popular with the fans. But if they decided to just throw the title on him, then so be it. But he was already popular enough. He didn't really need the title, so even everybody else back then even said it themselves, but it is what it is.
Raw, Undertaker was featured in the final segment in an interview spot. Undertaker welcomed the fans to the dark days of the World Wrestling Federation, saying he is prepared to defend the title against all challengers. Mankind was announced as the #1 contender for the title, and Undertaker admitted that Mankind was the most dangerous man in the WWF. Paul Bearer walked down the ramp. Mankind appeared on the screen asking Paul not to leave him, and the show went off the air before we could get an idea of what was going on. It appeared that Paul Bearer's good books while also leaving Mankind, but we would need to wait for a week before finding out. The next week then, Paul Bearer came to the ring and said he made a mistake in leaving the Undertaker's side, and he wanted to once again stand side by side with the dead man. Taker came to the ring and he said that betrayal is something he will never forget, but it may be something he could forgive. Taker said he owed Paul Bearer for all the years that they stood together in the past, and it seemed like the two men were going to reunite, but Taker ended up punching Paul Bearer. Undertaker began stalking Paul around the outside, and that's when Mankind appeared from under the ring. Mankind then shot a fireball into the Undertaker's eyes. At In Your House, Revenge of the Taker then, the Undertaker did indeed get his revenge when Paul Bearer was on the receiving end of a fireball.
Iconic shot.
While there are better Mankind versus Taker matches out there, this match at Revenge of the Taker is still worth your time.
Back in 2008, when I first got the Tombstone History of the Undertaker DVD, That match was featured right after the 1996 Buried Alive match. And honestly, I was watching this match back to back time and time again because it was such a good match. Those two put on a clinic, they put on a good story, and they basically just told a great story that it's not over yet. But 1998 was something that everybody is going to be talking about throughout the years to come. So you already know what I'm talking about because these two had one of the absolute legendary rivalries in the history of WWE.
The May 12th, 1997 episode of Raw then would kickstart the next career-changing storyline of The Undertaker. Now, normally here I would tell you guys that I've covered this already and direct you to another video, but I know some people don't really like that and would prefer if everything is covered in one neat video. So I'm going to show some clips from a previous video here I made on the introduction of Kane, so you guys won't need to click back and forth. At the Revenge of the Taker show, Paul got a fireball thrown in his face by The Undertaker. On the May 12th, 1997 episode of Raw, a comically bandaged Paul Bearer and Mankind made their way to the ring to
Such
make
an
an
iconic
announcement.
shot.
Paul Bearer said, "You remember Undertaker? Oh yes you do. I'm going to give you one more chance for us to get back together. If you do not accept
All
this final
blackmail.
offer, I'm going to do something that only you know
All
about
because
Undertaker.
you messed your face
the
up.
secret that only you know. I'm going to reveal your secret to the whole world. You hurt me, Undertaker. Come back or I'm going to hurt you."
Such a manipulative
So we
move
were
by
left
Paul Bearer,
wondering
but
what on earth Paul Bearer
again,
could have been talking
iconic.
about here. Undertaker made his way to the ring the following week on Raw, and in an interview segment with Vince McMahon, Paul Bearer appeared on the Titantron demanding that Undertaker comes back to him or the secret will be revealed. Undertaker asked for more time, and Bearer gave Undertaker another 7 days to make his decision. Of course, this was a tactic to get people to tune in again a week later. So let's jump to the following week, the May 26th episode of Raw. At the end of the show, Paul made his way to the ring. Paul said that the secret had been burning in him for years, making references to Undertaker's family and how Paul had promised the Undertaker's parents at their graves that he would never reveal this secret. Before Paul could say any more, Undertaker quickly made his way to the ring. Undertaker said that's what he has to do on this night. Undertaker then grabbed Paul Bearer by the throat, and we all thought Taker was about to destroy him, but as Raw went off the air, the Undertaker let go, and he sided with his old manager.
Try to keep the secret.
There were more questions than answers here, and the whole thing kept viewers tuning in to see the story unfold. The following week on Raw, we learned that The Undertaker...
Why Paul Bearer looked like he had a whole pack of cheese in his face? I just want to throw that out there.
1. Paul Bearer said that Undertaker would now be his personal item of destruction, and Undertaker was only allowed to do what Paul Bearer said. In the weeks that followed, The Undertaker found it very difficult to take orders from Paul Bearer.
Yo, that
And
makeup
on
is
the
on
June
point,
30th,
though.
1997 edition of Raw, Paul Bearer made his way to the ring, and the secret would be revealed. So during this promo, Paul Bearer said, "We are talking about a little funeral
Yeah,
home.
this is where
A
he
family
really
owned
snitched on
funeral
The
home.
Undertaker
The
and
father was
exposed
the
his
mortician,
secret.
the mother was the secretary, and there were 2 little kids there. One kid was a little red-headed punk, and then there was a second kid, a sweet little kid named Kane. I was the apprentice at the funeral home. The Undertaker's father was a mortician of excellence. He taught me everything I know. But while I was working at that funeral home, I noticed a lot of things going on. That little red-headed punk, there was something funny about him. He had a look in his...
Can you honestly imagine if Hollywood were to make a movie about The Undertaker based on this storyline alone, not a biography about Mark Holloway, but the character itself? Like, just imagine that. Like, starting off as kids at a funeral home, playing with matches, burning the whole place on fire, burning it down, killing their parents, and Paul was the only one that witnessed the whole thing. 20 years later, managing The Undertaker in the WWF, beating his opponents up, becoming the WWF champion not once but twice, but lost it to Bret Hart due to Shawn Michaels' interference as the referee. Can you honestly imagine if they were to make a movie based on that character alone right now? Imagine what it would have been like if Kane made his cinematic debut. That would have been hella dope if I saw that in person. This moment right here is what made Paul Bearer a legend because of the Undertaker and Kane storyline. One of the absolute best stories ever told in the WWE history. No cap.
What was so sad about the whole situation was that poor little Kane followed Undertaker everywhere he went. Undertaker was Kane's hero. Anything the Undertaker did was fine. My apprenticeship went on for about 2 years. The Undertaker and Kane would run around the funeral home like wild men. They'd sneak behind the garage smoking cigarettes. But one particular afternoon, I was
kids do be smoking cigarettes though. I've seen the woman on eyes in the past.
That little red-headed devil seed, the Undertaker, and his little brother. Something didn't seem right, but I went to school. I came back that night, and what do I see? I see fire trucks, I see ambulances, I see smoke, I see the funeral home in ashes. Someone burned down the funeral home. Inside the funeral home was the family who took care of me. I looked at the bushes, and who do I see? I see the Undertaker. Undertaker, you burnt the funeral home down to the ground. Undertaker, you are a murderer.
What it should have said was, murderer. You are a murderer, Undertaker. You are a goddamn murderer. That's literally what he said in his promo, but I guess since you're a PG content creator, but I just want to fix it for you.
Later in the night, we were shown the Undertaker backstage. Undertaker said he was not responsible for setting fire to the funeral home. Undertaker said his parents and Kane were in the funeral home when it burned down, but he was not responsible for starting the fire, and it was actually Kane who started the blaze. Undertaker stated that when Paul Bearer forced him to look at the charred remains of his mother,
good acting by Mark
changed him
Calloway,
forever, and he took it upon himself to become the Undertaker character that we all know today. Sounds fucking ridiculous as I say this now, but to be fair, The Undertaker done a great job here during this promo.
Oh yeah.
It was also revealed later that Kane was Bearer's illegitimate son and The Undertaker's half-brother. Paul would say that Kane is actually alive. Paul said that parts of Kane's body were disfigured and he was unable to go outside into the sunlight. Paul also said that for years, Kane has always dreamed of coming face to face with his brother in order to get his revenge. We were then teased in the weeks that followed that Kane was going to indeed show up. Undertaker started a feud with Shawn Michaels after
legendary
the HBK
feud.
cost Taker the
Legendary
WWF
feud.
Championship at SummerSlam 1997. After their match at In Your House Ground Zero ended in a no contest, the first ever Hell in a Cell match was booked for In Your House Bad Blood.
Front chat. The story of Undertaker and Shawn Michaels in 97 was not only legendary, but it capitalizes on how to do a storyline in pro wrestling just right. Wrestling in the 90s was a wild time. And the reason why I said that is because, for one, this pay-per-view showcases the first Hell in a Cell match, but it also showcases the debut of Kane with Paul Bearer. That's why I love Undertaker 97 so much, because there's so many iconic moments that happened during those years. Between 96 and 97 Undertaker, both versions were the best, hands down.
Was going to show up at Bad Blood. The Kane debut had been teased for so long by this time, and the TV advertisements promoting the show kind of gave it away also. During these commercials, Paul Bearer could be seen saying the words, "He's coming, dead man," referring to the arrival of Kane. With this in mind, the first ever Hell in a Cell match featuring Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at Bad Blood was so captivating that Kane was the last thing on my mind anyway, as the match played out. In the final moments of the match, when Undertaker was about to defeat Shawn Michaels, the lights went out in the arena. We heard the church organ introduction to Kane's entrance theme for the very first time. and out walked Paul Bearer,
iconic,
Glenn Jacobs' new and most successful character. Kane proceeded to rip the door off the Hell in a Cell structure as The Undertaker looked on in shock. Kane delivered a tombstone piledriver to The Undertaker and walked away as Shawn Michaels took advantage and pinned the dead man. Now that we have the introduction of Kane out of the way, it's only fair that we take...
I'm gonna need y'all to understand something. This nigga right here looks real scary when he debuted with the mask. Messed up the formed eye, along with the red lightning. Everything about this version of Kane when he debuted, God, this nigga is scary, man. And that's what I love about him. And that's one of the absolute reasons why I love this version of Kane. When Paul Bearer was with him, came out, dominated people. JR botching the commentary, which I can ignore that, but Kane made an interesting impression among the WWF fans at the time in the late 90s.
As there were some notable matches here that need discussed. At In Your House, A Cold Day in Hell, live from the Richmond Coliseum,
I forgot about this.
The Undertaker successfully defended his WWF Championship against Stone Cold Steve Austin. Again, a decent match, but
it was
not
a good
the
match,
best
though.
showdown that these two had. This one was more centered around the Austin versus Hart Foundation feud. Next up, we had the King of the Ring, where Nation member Farouk would get a chance to become the WWF champion. Undertaker got the win in this one when Farouk got distracted by his Nation teammates fighting on the outside. At In Your House Canadian Stampede, The Undertaker and Vader once again squared off in the ring, and this match I felt was better than their Royal Rumble encounter from around 6 months prior.
Oh yeah.
Undertaker was victorious here too. The two men worked hard throughout the whole match, and it comes recommended. The Bret Hart vs Undertaker match too at SummerSlam, where Undertaker drops the belt, is worth watching. It has much more heat than their
very underrated match.
1996 encounter, and it also had a great sense of unpredictability. The ending too was quite surprising when special referee Shawn Michaels hit Taker accidentally with a vicious chair shot.
And then the next night on Raw, Shawn Michaels just didn't care. He didn't take any accountability for what he did. He just being Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, and he heartbroke a lot of people.
Want Bret Hart to win, but he had no choice. He had to count Taker's shoulders to the mat after nailing him with a chair. Along with this, the match itself as a complete package was extremely good also. So, there were title defenses here against Austin, Farouk, Vader, and Bret Hart on pay-per-view, but the whole Kane secret storyline overshadowed what was happening in the ring. This is why I feel Taker's title run here was maybe not as good as it could have been.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, the Dead Man was doing some phenomenal work in the ring in 1997, and it's good to see a champion defend against a range of different wrestlers, something that is sometimes lost in today's WWE, but the Kane and Paul Bearer stuff was at the forefront here, meaning the focus of the actual title reign was given the backseat in terms of storytelling. Bret Hart winning the championship at SummerSlam, I feel, was the right move.
Yeah,
the
I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Kane program definitely didn't need the championship. There was enough meat on that bone. The entirety of Undertaker's title reign and beyond, not once did fan support waver. The Undertaker was a consistent fan favourite throughout the entire year. After wrestling Shawn Michaels at In Your House Ground Zero, and after the excellent Hell in a Cell match at Bad Blood, all focus was put on Kane versus The Undertaker. Paul Bearer and Kane would try to goad Undertaker into fighting his younger brother, but Taker would refuse, saying he wouldn't fight his own flesh and blood. With this in mind, Undertaker ended his pay-per-view year by facing Jeff Jarrett at In Your House Degeneration X, and yeah, it felt like Taker and Jarrett were just wasting time in the ring here until Kane showed up.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
When the Big Red Machine did make an appearance, he came to the ring.
Yo, this man is terrifying. I love this version of Kane so much.
Taker to fight back. Undertaker wouldn't retaliate, so Kane and Paul Bearer simply walked away. Jeff Jarrett won by disqualification here, but Taker did drop with a choke slam after the match.
It was all due to Paul Bearer to try to forced Undertaker to fight his brother.
1997 then was a storied year for the Dead Man, with some real highlights, such as taking part in the Final Four match, winning the title at WrestleMania, the Bret Hart match at SummerSlam, competing in the very first Hell in a Cell match with Shawn Michaels, and of course, the big story was the introduction of Undertaker's younger brother, Kane. Next time...
Shout out to this content creator. I love his work. I love his videos. I watch his video all the time. But I just want to react to this video with y'all so y'all be able to understand why I love this version of Undertaker from 96 to 97 than I did with the Ministry of Darkness. I did love the beginning of the Ministry of Darkness Undertaker, but up until Shane McMahon and them ruined it, made his character a bit weak, look like a chump, a coward with the corporate ministry. I really hated that version of Undertaker. I hated that for Mark Calloway. Even he said it himself that he was better off alone with the Ministry of Darkness with his own group. But at the end of the day, I like what they did with him in the 90s because he was peak Undertaker. 97 version of Undertaker was peak like hell. Especially with his iconic legendary rivalries with Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, and of course his brother Kane when Paul Bearer was trying to force him to fight his own brother, his TV brother. So, like I said, link to the original video will be down below. I appreciate the content. I appreciate y'all for coming out, supporting me, and watching my videos. Like always, I'm out.